I still remember the smell of the sheets that morning. Not perfume, not soap. Something warmer, something lived in. The scent of a body that had barely slept, and a heart that had finally woken up. That was the day everything began. I didn't know it yet. Neither did she. Back then, my name still carried weight in the city. Arthur Hale, 70 years old, owner of half the skyline of San Francisco, a man people feared, admired, and avoided. A widower, a ghost wrapped in tailored suits, a man whose bed was always perfectly made, because no one ever touched it. Until Elena. The sheets had been disturbed that morning, not by sex, not by hands, not by heat, but by something far more dangerous. Hope. I lay there, staring at the ceiling of my cold, immaculate bedroom, listening to a sound I hadn't heard in decades. Bare footsteps. Soft, careful, alive. They moved through my house like a secret. Not sneaking, never sneaking, but respecting the silence, as if the silence itself was sacred. I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't want the day to end quickly. The mansion on Pacific Heights had everything money could buy. Marble floors, art that no one looked at anymore, hallways so wide they echoed with loneliness. My wife used to say it felt like a museum built for a man who had forgotten how to live. She was right. After she died, the house became a mausoleum, every room preserved, every memory frozen. I lived like a guest in my own life, waking before dawn, drinking bitter coffee with no sugar, because sugar kills, they said, and watching the fog roll over the bay through a wall of glass. I owned the city, but I didn't belong to it. And then one March morning, the service door opened. I heard it from the staircase. Metal against metal, a hinge breathing, a pause. Then a woman stepped inside. She carried a small suitcase, a folded resume, and something else. Something you don't list on paper. Dignity. Her name was Elena Morales, 30 years old, dark hair tied back, eyes too steady for someone who had been disappointed by life more times than she would ever admit. Her clothes were simple, her posture calm, her presence unsettling. Not loud, not seductive, just real. "Good morning, sir," she said softly when she noticed me. I stopped halfway down the stairs. I looked at her the way I had looked at every new employee for 20 years, distant, assessing, unreachable. "Who hired you?" I asked. She didn't flinch. "Mr. Collins, your house manager," she replied. "Today is my first day." I nodded once, that was all. Another woman, another worker, another invisible soul moving through my life without touching it, or so I thought. The first days passed quietly. She cleaned without noise, watered plants as if they were listening, prepared my tea every afternoon at exactly 5. She never rushed, never complained, never tried to impress. And yet, the house felt different, not warmer, aware. I started noticing small things. The way she folded the blankets, not too tight, not too loose, like someone who understood comfort, not perfection. The way she opened windows just enough to let the air breathe. The way she hummed sometimes, barely audible, like a thought she didn't want anyone to hear. One afternoon, I saw her in the garden. She was kneeling on the grass, sleeves rolled up, skin touched by sunlight, hair escaping its tie. Sweat glistened lightly on her neck. Nothing explicit, nothing improper, but my chest tightened. I leaned on the balcony railing, watching her hands move through the dry branches. "Leave that," I said. She looked up, not startled, just present. "These plants only need care," she replied gently, "even the ones that look dead." I said nothing. That night, her words stayed with me. Dead things don't usually come back. It was the photograph that broke the silence between us. She had been dusting the old frames in the hallway when I walked in. My wife's picture, my past, my wound. "Don't touch that," I said sharply. She lowered her eyes immediately. "I'm sorry," she said. She looked happy. Happy. No one had said that word in years. I swallowed. "Her name was Margaret," I murmured before I could stop myself. Elena nodded slowly, as if receiving a sacred confession. "A smile like that," she said, cleaning the frame with care, "can make a whole house feel alive." Then she walked away, and something in me cracked. Days turned into something else. The piano, untouched for 2 decades, was cleaned, not played, just awakened. Elena would pass her fingers over the keys in the mornings, never pressing them, like she was greeting an old friend. If you were standing where I am right now, torn between fear and love, what would you do? If this story is touching something real inside you, please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It truly matters to me. And tell me in the comments, if you were living this moment, would you follow your heart or walk away? One evening, I found her sitting there, eyes closed, breathing slowly. "Do you play?" I asked. "No," she smiled. "But I listen." My grandmother used to say pianos remember who loved them. I sat beside her without realizing it. I used to play, I whispered. Then maybe it's time, she said, still not looking at me. That night, for the first time in 20 years, I touched a key. The sound was imperfect, weak, but it filled the house. And it filled me. I started waiting for her footsteps, not consciously. But every morning my body knew before my mind did. When her presence moved through the rooms, the house breathed again. When she stood near me, there was space. Space filled with silence, heat, meaning. Nothing happened. That was the danger. The tension lived in glances that lingered too long, in silences that felt heavy, in the way my bed, once untouched, now smelled like warm linen and restless nights. I wasn't thinking of her body. I was thinking of how she made mine feel alive, and that terrified me. Because desire at 70 doesn't roar, it whispers. And whispers are harder to silence. I knew it was wrong. The position, the unspoken hunger growing between breaths and pauses. But desire doesn't ask for permission. It waits. It watches. And that morning, when the sheets were no longer perfectly smooth, when the house felt awake, when her footsteps echoed softly down the hall, I understood something that would change my life forever. Elena hadn't come to clean my house. She had come to disturb my soul. Desire does not arrive like a storm. It arrives like a question you don't dare to ask. After that morning, nothing visible changed. The house remained quiet, the routine intact, the distance appropriate. And yet everything was different. I noticed it in the smallest details, in how my body woke before my mind, in how my attention followed sounds that had never mattered before. Her sounds. Elena's presence did not announce itself. It settled. It lingered. It learned the rhythm of the house and then slowly changed it, without force, without intention. She moved like someone who understood that silence could be shared. Every morning she opened the curtains just enough to let the light spill across the floor, never touching my bedroom door. Respectful, careful, as if she knew that some boundaries were not meant to be crossed quickly. But boundaries, I learned, can still tremble. I found myself listening for her breathing when she worked nearby. Not because I wanted something improper, no, but because the sound of another human being, alive and steady, felt unfamiliar and intoxicating. Loneliness dulls the senses. Presence sharpens them. We spoke more. Not conversations, not really. She would ask if the tea was too strong. I would comment on the weather, though we both stood near the same window. Sometimes our words overlapped. Sometimes they didn't come at all. One afternoon, I sat in the library reading a book I had read 100 times before. I wasn't reading. I was waiting. She entered quietly to dust the shelves. Her sleeve brushed against my shoulder as she reached for a book above me. It was nothing, barely a touch, but my breath caught. She froze. "I'm sorry," she whispered, stepping back. I nodded, pretending calm though my chest felt tight, unfamiliar heat spreading through it. "It's fine," I said. She lingered for a second longer than necessary. Then she left. The room felt emptier than before. Desire began to build not in my thoughts but in my body. At night, my bed no longer felt like a place of rest. The sheets tangled more easily. Sleep came later. Dreams arrived uninvited. I dreamed of hands, not touching, just close. Of voices whispering without words. Of warmth, of breath, of something unfinished. I woke up sweaty, confused, embarrassed by my own pulse. 70 years old. I had believed that part of life was behind me. That longing belonged to younger men, reckless men, foolish men. But desire doesn't care how many birthdays you've had. It only cares if your heart is still listening. Elena never flirted. That was what made it unbearable. She did not lower her voice intentionally. She did not seek my gaze. She did not touch me unless necessary, and even then, barely. Her restraint felt intimate. One evening, a storm rolled over the city. The windows rattled. Thunder filled the sky like a warning. The power went out. The house plunged into darkness. I heard her gasp softly somewhere down the hall. "It's all right," I called out. "There are candles in the kitchen." "I know," she replied. "I'll light them." Minutes passed, then footsteps. She entered the living room holding a candle, her face illuminated by warm light, shadows dancing across her features. The softness of the glow made her look closer, more human, more vulnerable. She placed the candle on the table. The silence grew thick. Thunder echoed again. "I don't like storms," she admitted quietly. Something in her voice surprised me. "You don't have to be alone," I said before thinking. She looked at me then, really looked. And in her eyes I saw hesitation and relief. She sat across from me, careful to leave space between us. The candle flickered. Our shadows touched before we did. Time slowed. We didn't talk about the storm. We didn't talk about the darkness. We talked about nothing, about how quiet the city sounded when electricity failed, about how strange it felt to sit without distractions, about small memories that slipped out without invitation. My mother used to light candles during storms, Elena said. She said fear gets smaller when you give it light. My wife believed something similar, I replied. She said silence wasn't empty, it was just waiting. Elena smiled faintly. I like that. Our knees were close now, not touching, almost. I was aware of everything. The warmth of the candle, the smell of wax, the faint scent of her skin, clean, human, alive. I was also aware of my restraint. I didn't move. Neither did she. The tension sat between us like a third presence, unspoken and undeniable. When the lights returned, neither of us celebrated. Something precious had been interrupted. After that night, proximity became dangerous. Innocent moments carried weight. Passing in hallways felt charged. Silence became louder. I caught her watching me once, thinking I hadn't noticed. Her gaze softened when our eyes met, then quickly turned away. I pretended not to see it. She pretended nothing had happened. But desire had already found its language. It spoke through pauses, through unfinished sentences, through the way my name sounded different when she said it. Arthur, she would say, careful, respectful, but sometimes softer. One morning I found her in the laundry room folding sheets. My sheets. They were warm from the dryer. Her hands moved slowly, smoothing wrinkles with care as if they mattered. As if I mattered. Something inside me twisted. You don't have to do that, I said. She looked up, confused. It's my job. I meant, you don't have to be so careful. She smiled gently. I do, she said. Some things deserve care. Our eyes locked. The sheets rested between us, white and warm, carrying the faint scent of soap and heat. My bed had never felt so present. I stepped back. I needed air. That night I lay awake again. The sheets were messy, my body restless. I thought of her hands folding linen, of her breath during the storm, of the way she never crossed line, but made me want to. Desire grew because it was forbidden, because it was unsaid, because it asked me to choose between comfort and courage. I didn't know what I would choose. I only knew that something inside me had already begun to change. Elena felt it too. I saw it in the way she hesitated before entering a room if I was there, in the way her cheeks warmed when our fingers brushed accidentally, in the way she avoided sitting too close, and yet always found herself nearby. One afternoon I asked her to join me for tea in the garden. She hesitated, then nodded. We sat under the open sky, the city distant and quiet. Birds moved through the trees. The air felt heavier than it should have. You don't have to, I said softly. I know, she replied, but I want to. That word, want, it echoed in my chest. We sipped tea in silence. Her knee brushed mine. She inhaled sharply. So did I. Neither of us moved away. That was the moment I understood. Desire had finished building. It was no longer a question. It was a truth waiting for courage. And as the afternoon light wrapped around us, as the warmth of her presence settled deeper than any touch, I knew something irreversible had begun. Not an affair, not a mistake, a slow aching awakening, one that would demand everything I thought I was done giving. There is a moment when desire stops being quiet. It doesn't scream. It tightens. After the afternoon in the garden, something settled between us. Heavy, undeniable, impossible to ignore. We went back to our routines, but the routines no longer fit. They pressed against us like clothes that had shrunk overnight. I felt it first in my chest, a pressure that arrived when she entered a room, a strange warmth that spread when she laughed softly at something trivial, a restlessness that made me pace at night, tugging at sheets already tangled from sleepless hours. I told myself it was nothing. Loneliness plays tricks. Age confuses the heart. Memory lies. But none of that explained the way my pulse reacted to her presence. None of it explained why silence with her felt fuller than conversation with anyone else. Elena grew quieter. Not distant, never distant, but thoughtful, as if she were measuring each step, each breath, each word, as if she too sensed the ground shifting beneath us. Sometimes I caught her standing still in doorways, eyes unfocused, lost in something she quickly hid when she noticed me watching. You all right? I asked once. She nodded too fast. Yes, just thinking. I knew that look. It was the look of someone fighting a truth they were not ready to name. The house noticed before we did. The piano keys were pressed more often now. Not melodies, not songs, just notes tentative and uneven echoing through empty rooms. I would stop playing the moment I heard her footsteps, ashamed of the way the sound betrayed me. She pretended not to notice. But one evening, she lingered by the doorway, arms folded loosely across her chest. "It sounds warmer," she said. I didn't look at her. "I'm out of practice." "Practice comes back," she replied softly. "So do other things." I felt the words settle deep. I turned toward her then. She was standing closer than before, not close enough to touch, close enough to feel. We stood there, breathing the same air. "I shouldn't," I said quietly. She swallowed. "I know." That was all. But knowing didn't stop anything. Desire grew sharper in the absence of release. Every unspoken thought pressed harder. Every avoided glance burned longer. Our restraint fed the tension instead of easing it. I began to notice her body not as temptation, but as presence. The curve of her shoulder when she leaned over the counter. The way her breath changed when she climbed the stairs. The faint sheen of sweat at the base of her neck after hours of work. Nothing vulgar, just human. Alive, and unbearably close. One night I woke from a dream with my heart racing. In the dream she was standing beside my bed. Not touching, just there, watching me breathe. I sat up, breath uneven, sheets twisted around my legs. My body felt heavy, awake in a way that embarrassed me. I pressed my hands into the mattress. Get control. But control felt fragile now, like something I had relied on for so long that I hadn't noticed it wearing thin. The next morning she knocked on my door. That had never happened before. I froze. "Yes," I called. I need to clean the bedroom," she said. Her voice trembled slightly. "Later," I replied too quickly. "That's fine." A pause. "I can come back." "No," I said, standing abruptly. "I'll be out in a moment." I opened the door. She stood there, eyes lowered, hands clasped together. The air between us tightened. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she murmured. "You didn't," I said. Our eyes met. Something unsteady flickered there, fear, want, uncertainty. I stepped aside to let her pass. She brushed by me. Barely, but the contact sent a wave through my body, immediate and intense. She inhaled sharply. So did I. She moved quickly to the window, opening it wider than necessary. "I'll start with the bed," she said, her back to me. The bed. My bed. The sheets still rumpled from another restless night. I turned away, heart pounding. "I'll be downstairs," I said. She didn't answer. I spent the morning in the study, pretending to work, listening to sounds that betrayed her presence upstairs. The rustle of fabric, the quiet thump of pillows, the faint exhale she released when lifting the mattress corners. Each sound felt intimate. Each one reminded me of what I was denying. By the time she finished, my hands were trembling. This had to stop, or it would destroy us both. I asked her to sit with me that afternoon. Not tea, not the garden, the living room. Neutral ground. She hesitated before sitting across from me, posture straight, expression guarded. "I think we need to talk," I said. She nodded slowly. "Yes." I chose my words carefully. "This and whatever this is, it's not appropriate." Her jaw tightened. "I know. How you deserve better than being confused by an old man who should know better." She flinched. "That's not fair," she said softly. "To you or to me?" "To either of us," she replied. "This isn't something you're doing alone." I looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were steady but wet, her breathing shallow. "I'm trying to protect you," I said. She shook her head. "I don't feel protected," she whispered. "I feel invisible when you pretend nothing is happening." The words struck deep. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice low. She hesitated. "Then, the truth." I closed my eyes. The truth was dangerous. The truth was desire. "I want to touch you," I admitted quietly, "and that terrifies me." Her breath caught. "I think about you when I shouldn't," I continued. "I wake up thinking of your voice, I wait for your footsteps, and I don't know how to stop." Then she spoke, voice trembling but firm. "I feel it too." The words landed like a confession and a promise all at once. "I didn't plan it," she said. "I didn't come here looking for this, but I can't pretend my body doesn't react when you're near. I can't pretend my heart doesn't—" She stopped, her hands clenched. "I'm scared," she finished. "So am I said. Our fear mirrored each other. Age, position, judgment, everything loomed between us. But so did something else. Connection. We sat there, the distance between us heavy with possibility. I stood up abruptly. "I need space," I said. She nodded, eyes glistening. "So do I." That night the house felt colder, not emptier, tenser, like something holding its breath. Days passed. We avoided each other more deliberately now. When we did meet, our interactions were careful, restrained, painfully polite. But avoidance sharpened the ache. The bedsheets grew more tangled, the nights longer, the silence louder. I heard her crying once late at night. Soft, controlled, trying not to be heard. It nearly broke me. One evening I found her in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, shoulders tense. "Elena," I said gently. She didn't turn. "I can't keep doing this," she said, "this pretending." I stepped closer. Neither of us touched the other. "Then don't," I whispered. She turned to face me. Her eyes were red but resolute. "What are we doing?" she asked. "I don't know," I answered honestly. Her chest rose and fell quickly. "I don't want to be your mistake," she said. "You're not," I replied immediately. "You're the opposite." Silence. The air felt thick, electric. Our faces were closer now, too close. I could feel the heat from her skin. The space between us vanished. Not physically, but emotionally. If one of us moved, everything would change. I didn't move. Neither did she. But the tension had reached its breaking point. Something had to give. And as we stood there, suspended between restraint and surrender, I understood that this was no longer about desire alone. It was about courage. And whatever came next would reshape us forever. Proximity changes everything. Not because of what happens, but because of what almost does. After that night in the kitchen, we no longer pretended the tension didn't exist. We simply carried it with us, carefully, quietly, like a fragile object neither of us dared to drop. The house felt smaller, hallways shortened, rooms closed in. Even the air seemed to remember where we had stood, how close we had been, how little space remained between breath and confession. We spoke less, but when we did, every word mattered. It began with simple things. I would find her already in a room I was about to enter, and instead of turning away, I stayed. She would pause, sensing me behind her, and not move. Our shadows would meet on the wall before our bodies did. Nothing improper. One morning I stood at the kitchen counter while she prepared coffee. Steam rose between us, warm and faintly sweet. She reached for a mug at the same time I reached for the sugar bowl we never used. Our hands brushed. This time neither of us pulled away immediately. The contact was brief, skin against skin, but it echoed through me like a held note. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though there was nothing to apologize for. "It's all right," I said, my voice lower than intended. She handed me the mug. Our fingers touched again, just for a second longer. Then she stepped back. We both exhaled. Physical proximity became our unspoken language. Not touch, not yet. Just nearness. When she cleaned, I found reasons to stay nearby. When I read, she lingered longer than necessary in the same room. We sat closer on opposite ends of the couch, close enough to feel warmth, far enough to preserve the illusion of restraint. That was all it was now. At night, I lay awake aware of her presence elsewhere in the house. Not imagining her body, no, but imagining the space between us and how easily it could disappear. Desire grew quieter again. One afternoon, she asked if I needed help organizing old boxes in the storage room. I should have said no. The room was narrow, low-ceilinged, filled with dust and memories, the kind of place where closeness is unavoidable. Yes, I said instead. The air was thick with age and cardboard. We worked side by side, passing boxes, brushing shoulders, stepping around each other carefully. Too carefully. She bent to lift a box, and I reached instinctively to steady it. My hand hovered near her waist. I stopped. She froze. Slowly, she straightened, turning toward me. We stood inches apart now. I could see the faint freckles on her skin. I could hear her breathing. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. "Yes," I replied. "Are you?" She nodded, but neither of us moved. The space between us felt charged, fragile, sacred. I could have stepped back. I didn't. She didn't either. Our bodies did not touch, but our awareness did. The moment passed when a box slipped, hitting the floor with a dull thud. We both startled, then laughed, quietly, nervously. And the spell broke, but it did not disappear. That night, I dreamed of closeness again. Not of acts, of heat, of breath, of the weight of another person near enough to feel but not claim. I woke tangled in sheets, skin warm, heart racing. I sat at the edge of the bed, hands on my knees, steadying myself. This was no longer harmless. It was becoming essential. Elena felt it too. I saw it in the way she avoided enclosed spaces with me, in how she chose wide rooms, open doors, safe distances, until she didn't. One evening, a sudden rainstorm trapped us both in the hallway outside the study. Thunder rolled. The lights flickered but stayed on. We stood there, unsure who should move first. The hallway was narrow. Passing meant brushing past. So did I. "I'll go first," she said. She stepped toward me. I pressed myself lightly against the wall to give her space. She passed slowly, her arm close to my chest, her hair brushing my sleeve. Her warmth lingered after she was gone. I stood there longer than necessary. Proximity became addictive, not because it promised release, but because it promised presence. I hadn't been near another person like this in decades. Not intimately, not emotionally, not honestly. The simple act of sitting close to her felt like rebellion, like youth, like danger. One late afternoon, we found ourselves in the living room again. The same couch, the same space, different tension. She sat at one end, legs tucked beneath her, posture guarded. I sat closer than before, though I told myself it was practical. The rest of the couch felt too far away. Outside, the sky darkened. Inside, the silence thickened. She adjusted the throw blanket beside her. It slipped, pooling loosely between us. I reached to help. Our hands met over the fabric. This time neither of us spoke. The blanket stayed where it was, forgotten. Our fingers did not interlace. Close enough to feel warmth, close enough to imagine. She looked at our hands, then up at me. Her eyes were wide, uncertain, searching. "Arthur," she said quietly. "Yes." "I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I." Her fingers twitched. I felt it like a pull. "I don't want to be careful forever," she whispered. The words stayed with me. I turned my hand palm up, not touching her. Inviting. She stared at it. Seconds passed. Then slowly she placed her hand above mine, barely grazing. The contact was light, electric. We both inhaled sharply. She pulled away immediately, hand trembling. "I'm sorry." "No," I replied, my voice unsteady. "Don't be." We sat there, breathing hard, hearts racing. Nothing more happened, but nothing would ever be the same. After that, touch became inevitable, not rushed, but acknowledged. A hand briefly resting on my arm when she passed behind me, my fingers brushing her wrist when handing her something, the faint pressure of her shoulder against mine when standing too close. Each contact was brief, each one lingered. I became acutely aware of my body again, of my age, of my limits, and yet I felt younger than I had in years, not reckless but awake. One night the power went out again. Candles returned. We sat together at the table this time, closer than before. The candlelight softened everything. She rested her elbows on the table, chin in her hands. I watched the flame reflect in her eyes. "You're staring," she said gently. "So are you," I replied. She smiled faintly. The silence deepened. She shifted closer, unconsciously, her knee brushing mine beneath the table. Neither of us moved away. The contact remained. My breath slowed. Her breathing matched it. The candle flickered. The world shrank to that moment. I reached out, not to take her hand, not to pull her closer, but to move a strand of hair away from her face. My fingers hovered near her cheek. She closed her eyes. That was permission. I brushed the hair aside with the lightest touch. Her skin was warm, alive. She opened her eyes. And in that look, I saw everything we were trying not to become. She leaned forward slightly. Not enough to touch, enough to promise. My heart pounded. I pulled my hand back. "I can't," I said hoarsely. She nodded, swallowing. "I know." We sat there until the candle burned low. When the lights returned, neither of us celebrated. That night, my bed was more disheveled than ever. Sheets twisted, pillows scattered. I lay there staring into darkness, aware of my body in ways I hadn't been in years. Not driven by lust, driven by connection, by the ache of wanting without taking. And I realized something terrifying. Physical proximity had done what words could not. It had made restraint painful. It had made distance unbearable. And it had brought us to the edge of something neither of us could step away from much longer. There are nights that do not belong to sleep. They belong to waiting. That night began quietly, like so many others, but my body knew before my mind did that rest would not come. The house was still, too still. Even the distant hum of the city felt muted, as if the world itself were holding its breath. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the sheets already twisted around my legs. I hadn't slept well in weeks. Desire had taken up residence in my body, not as hunger, but as heat, a persistent warmth that refused to cool. My bedroom smelled faintly of soap and linen and something else, human, lived in. The bed was no longer a place of order. It was a witness to restless nights, to breath held too long, to thoughts that would not be dismissed. I shifted again. The sheets tangled further. I heard movement down the hall. Soft footsteps. I closed my eyes, not because I didn't want to see her, but because I was afraid of how much I did. She knocked lightly. Not the careful knock of an employee, the hesitant knock of someone unsure if they should be there. "Yes," I said, my voice already rough. She paused. "I heard you walking earlier. I wanted to check if you were all right." The concern in her voice undid me. "I'm fine," I said, though it wasn't true. "You don't have to worry." Another pause. "I know," she replied softly, "but I am." I opened the door. She stood there in the dim hallway light, hair loose around her shoulders. wearing a simple cotton shirt and soft pants. Nothing revealing, nothing intentional, but she looked warm, human. Her eyes flicked briefly to the bed behind me, the tangled sheets, the pillows no longer in their places. I felt exposed. "Do you need anything?" she asked. "No," I said. Then more honestly, "I don't know." She stepped inside. The door closed quietly behind her. The room felt smaller with her in it, warmer. The air shifted. She stood near the foot of the bed, hands clasped, eyes taking in the familiar space as if seeing it for the first time. The bedside lamp cast a soft glow, turning shadows gentle. "You haven't been sleeping," she said. It wasn't a question. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my hands together. "No." "Is it the pain?" she asked. "No," I replied. "It's everything else." She nodded slowly, as if she understood more than I had said. She moved closer, not to me but to the window, opening it just a bit. Cool night air drifted in, brushing against warm skin. "Sometimes air helps," she murmured. She turned back toward me. Her gaze softened when she noticed how tense I was. Shoulders tight, jaw clenched. "You look exhausted," she said. "So do you," I replied. She smiled faintly. Silence settled between us, thick and intimate. She sat on the edge of the bed, not beside me, just close enough. The mattress dipped slightly under her weight. My body reacted instantly, heat blooming, breath shallow, awareness sharpening. The bed creaked softly. Neither of us commented on it. I could feel her warmth through the thin fabric of her clothes. The nearness made my skin tingle, like it was remembering something long forgotten. She rested her hands on her thighs, fingers curling slightly. "I didn't mean to intrude," she said. "I just couldn't sleep either." I swallowed. "Neither could I admitted. The confession hung between us. She glanced at the bed again, then back at me. "May I?" she asked quietly. "May you what?" "Sit closer." My heart pounded. "Yes," I said. She shifted, moving closer until our shoulders brushed. The contact was light, devastating. My breath hitched. I felt it in my chest, my stomach, my hands. She noticed. So did I. "I'm warm," she murmured, almost apologetically. "So am I replied. The air between us felt thick, charged. We sat there, bodies close, heat building not from action but from proximity. The sheets beneath us were rumpled now, creased with movement. My bed no longer felt like mine alone. Minutes passed. Neither of us moved away. The night pressed in around us. Outside, a distant siren wailed, then faded. Inside, everything was too quiet, too intimate. She leaned back slightly, bracing her hands on the mattress. Her shirt pulled gently across her skin as she stretched, revealing the curve of her neck, the faint sheen of sweat at her collarbone. Nothing deliberate. I turned my head away, afraid of my own thoughts. "Arthur," she said softly. "You're shaking." I hadn't noticed. She reached out instinctively, her hand hovering near my arm. She stopped herself. I placed my hand over hers, not gripping. Her skin was warm. She inhaled sharply. I felt it through her fingers. Our hands stayed that way, still resting on my leg. The contact grounded me and unmade me. "I don't want to cross a line," she whispered. "I know," I said, "but I'm tired of standing so far away from something that feels real," she continued. I turned to face her. Our faces were close now. Her breath brushed my cheek. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I replied. Our hands tightened slightly, not grasping, just acknowledging. The bed shifted again beneath us, sheets bunching further. My body was acutely aware of itself now, of heat, of tension, of a deep ache that had nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with connection. She shifted her weight unconsciously, her knee brushing mine. The contact lingered. Her breathing changed. So did mine. I could feel sweat forming at my temples, my back, warmth pooling where our bodies nearly touched. This wasn't passion. Not yet. It was the edge of it. She leaned her head back slightly, exposing her throat. A vulnerable gesture. I noticed my hand tighten unconsciously around hers. She noticed too. Her fingers squeezed gently in response. The room felt heavier. "I don't want to leave," she said quietly. The words felt like a confession. "You don't have to," I replied. She looked at me then, eyes dark with emotion, searching my face for something. Permission, reassurance, truth. I leaned closer, stopping just short of touching her forehead with mine. We stayed there, breathing the same air, our foreheads nearly meeting. My other hand pressed into the mattress, knuckles white. I wanted to pull her closer. I didn't. She wanted to close the distance. She didn't. Restraint sat between us, trembling. The bed bore witness to it all. The sheets were a mess now, creased, tangled, warm. Pillows pushed aside, evidence of a night that refused to remain neat. She exhaled slowly. "I should go," she said, though she made no move to stand. "I know," I replied. Seconds stretched, then minutes. Finally, she leaned her head against my shoulder, just for a moment. Just enough. Her weight was light, careful. The contact sent a wave through me, comfort and longing intertwined. I closed my eyes. My shoulder grew warm beneath her cheek. Her breath steadied. For a moment, the world felt right. When she finally pulled away, she did so slowly, reluctantly. She stood, smoothing her shirt, her movements careful. "I'll let you rest," she said. "Thank you," I replied. For what, I wasn't sure. For the care, for the closeness, for not crossing a line we weren't ready to cross. She paused at the door, looking back once. The look lingered. Then she left. So I lay back on the bed, heart racing, body warm, sheets twisted around me like evidence of something unfinished. Sleep did not come, but peace did. For the first time in years, my body remembered what it meant to be wanted. Not for what I owned, not for who I was, but for how I felt. And I knew then that this night had changed us. Not because of what happened, but because of what almost did. After that night, nothing in me felt settled. The house returned to its familiar quiet, but inside me there was noise. Constant, restless, unrelenting. I moved through the rooms as if I were carrying a storm beneath my skin. Every object seemed to remember what had nearly happened. Every corner echoed with the tension we had left behind. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it would fade. It didn't. The conflict took shape the moment I woke the next morning. My body felt heavy, warm, aware in a way that embarrassed me. The sheets were still tangled, marked by a night of restraint that had cost me more energy than any indulgence ever could. I sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slowly, grounding myself. You are not a young man. You are not free to be reckless. You are not allowed to want this. But desire does not respond to logic. It responds to truth. And the truth was simple and devastating. I wanted her presence more than I wanted my peace. I avoided her that morning, not out of anger, not out of shame, out of fear. Fear of how easily I could unravel if I saw her again so soon. Fear of what my eyes might betray before my words could protect us both. She respected the distance. I heard her moving elsewhere in the house, careful, quiet. Her restraint mirrored mine, and that somehow hurt more. By midday, the silence had become unbearable. I went to the study, tried to read, tried to work, tried to remember who I had been before Elena entered my life. It felt like remembering someone else entirely. The conflict was not just about desire. It was about identity. For decades, I had been a man defined by control. Of business, of time, of emotion. I had learned to live without needing, without reaching, without hoping. Hope had cost me once. After my wife died, I had promised myself I would never give another person the power to break me open like that again. Love had felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. And now here I was, 70 years old, shaken by a woman who asked for nothing and offered everything simply by being present. It felt unfair. To her, to the life I had carefully constructed, to avoid exactly this kind of vulnerability. That afternoon, I found myself standing outside the kitchen, listening. She was inside, humming softly, the sound low and intimate as if meant only for herself. I closed my eyes, leaning my forehead against the doorframe. This is not love, I told myself. This is longing born of loneliness. But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't true. Loneliness had never sounded like her voice. I entered the kitchen. She startled slightly when she noticed me, then relaxed. "Good afternoon," she said, carefully neutral. "Good afternoon," I replied. We stood there, separated by the counter, the space between us filled with everything we were not saying. "I wanted to apologize," I said suddenly. Her eyes lifted, surprised. "For putting you in an impossible position," I continued. "For confusing things that should be clear." She was quiet for a long moment. "You didn't confuse them alone," she said softly. That honesty cut deep. "I don't want to hurt you," I said. "I know. And yet," I added, "I don't know how to make this stop." She looked down at her hands, then back up at me. "Maybe it doesn't need to stop," she said. "Maybe it just needs to be understood." Understood. The word lingered. Understanding meant facing something I had spent years avoiding. That night, the conflict turned inward. I lay awake again, staring into darkness, the weight of my thoughts heavier than the blankets on my chest. My body remembered the warmth of her sitting beside me, the gentle pressure of her shoulder, the quiet way she had leaned into me as if seeking safety. I clenched my jaw. This isn't right. Not because it was wrong in some moral sense, but because it was dangerous. To my carefully maintained distance from pain. If I allowed myself to want her, truly want her, I would have to accept the possibility of loss. And I wasn't sure I was strong enough to survive that again. Eleanor struggled too. I could see it in the way she moved, less certain, more deliberate. She avoided lingering in rooms with me, but her eyes always found mine first. She smiled less easily. Her laughter, when it came, sounded restrained. Once I found her sitting alone in the garden, staring at nothing. "You all right?" I asked. She nodded, though her eyes told a different story. "I'm trying to be," she replied. I sat beside her, leaving space. "Trying can be exhausting," I said. She smiled sadly. "So is pretending." The conflict was mirrored between us, two people wanting honesty, afraid of its cost. The days that followed felt like a test of endurance. Every shared space became a battlefield between restraint and desire. Every accidental touch sent ripples through my resolve. Every moment apart felt heavier than the last. I began questioning myself more harshly. What do you think you're doing? What future could this possibly have? What right do you have to pull her into your uncertainty? I imagined the judgment of others, the whispers, the looks, the assumptions that would be made without knowing us at all. I imagined her life disrupted, her reputation questioned, her intentions doubted. The thought of being the cause of that made my chest tighten. I didn't want to protect myself at her expense. One evening I found her packing supplies in the hallway closet. Her movements were stiff, distracted. "Elena," I said gently. She turned. "I think we need boundaries," I said, "clear ones." Her expression fell, though she masked it quickly. "I agree," she said. The agreement felt like a loss. "We should keep our distance," I continued, "for your sake, for mine." She nodded, eyes shining. The words sounded like surrender. I hated myself for it. That night I sat alone in the living room, the piano untouched. The house felt larger again, emptier. I realized then how much of its warmth had come from her presence. Boundaries, I understood, were not walls. They were wounds we dressed to avoid deeper pain, but wounds still hurt. Days passed with careful distance. We spoke politely, professionally, safely, and yet the conflict grew sharper. I missed her more when she was near, but unreachable than I ever had when she was fully absent. One afternoon I overheard her laughing on the phone, soft, genuine laughter I hadn't heard in days. The sound made something twist inside me. I wanted to be the reason for that laughter again. The realization frightened me. I confronted myself that night. Sitting alone in the dark, I asked the question I had avoided since the beginning. What if this is love? Not infatuation, not need. Love. Love that arrives late and uninvited, asking not for permission but for courage. If it was love, then avoiding it would not save me. It would only hollow me out further. And that thought that I might choose safety over truth felt unbearable. The conflict reached its peak the following morning. I found Elena standing in the doorway of the study, hesitant. "Yes?" I said. "I was thinking," she began, then stopped. "So was I replied. We looked at each other, the distance between us heavy with everything unsaid. "I don't want to keep pretending," she said finally. "It's hurting more than the truth ever could." Her words settled deep. She was right. The conflict had reached its breaking point. Whatever came next would demand a decision. Not about desire, about courage. And as I looked at her, this woman who had awakened something I thought long buried, I knew that continuing to deny what we felt would cost me more than facing it ever could. The question was no longer whether I would choose. It was how. Some moments do not explode. They unfold, inevitably, like a door that has always been unlocked, waiting for someone brave enough to turn the handle. That morning, the house felt different. Not tense, not heavy, honest. Light filtered through the windows in a softer way, as if the walls themselves had decided to stop resisting what had been growing inside them. The silence was no longer sharp. It was tender, expectant. I found Elena in the living room. She was standing near the piano, not touching it, just close enough to feel its presence. Her back was to me. Her shoulders rose and fell slowly, as if she were steadying herself. For a moment, I simply watched her, not with desire, with reverence. This woman had walked into my life quietly and undone me completely, not by force, not by seduction, but by truth. And now, standing there in the morning light, she looked like someone who had reached the edge of something and decided not to turn back. "Elena," I said softly. She turned. Our eyes met. And in that instant, the conflict that had lived inside me for weeks fell silent. Not resolved, accepted. We didn't rush toward each other. We didn't move at all. The space between us was filled with everything we had survived separately and everything we were about to face together. "I can't do this halfway anymore," she said quietly. Neither accusation nor demand lived in her voice, only clarity. "Neither can I replied. I took a step closer. She didn't retreat. Another step. Still, she stayed. The distance between us shrank until it felt symbolic rather than physical, until the air itself seemed to hum with meaning. "I've spent years avoiding this feeling," I said, convincing myself I was finished with it, that wanting was a weakness. She shook her head slowly. "It's not weakness," she said. "It's courage, even when it hurts." Her words reached a place inside me that had been locked for a very long time. I exhaled deeply. "I don't know what the future looks like," I admitted. "I don't know how much time I have. I don't know what the world will say." She stepped closer. Close enough now that I could feel the warmth of her body, the quiet strength of her presence. "I don't need promises," she said. "I need truth." I nodded. "The truth," I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest, "is that loving you terrifies me." Her lips parted slightly. "Why?" "Because it matters," I answered. "Because losing you would break me. Because you didn't just make me feel young, you made me feel alive." Her eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. "That's all I ever wanted," she whispered. "To be seen, to matter to someone without pretending." I reached out slowly, deliberately, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. My hand found her cheek. Warm. She leaned into my touch, as if her body had been waiting for permission her heart had already given. And in that moment, no longer resisting, no longer denying, I understood that love does not arrive with certainty. It arrives with surrender. She closed her eyes. So did I. Our foreheads rested together, not in desperation, but in shared relief. 2 breaths became one rhythm. The world narrowed to the space between us. "I don't want to be your escape," she said softly. "You're not," I replied. "You're my return." Her breath hitched. I felt it against my skin, felt the quiet tremor in her body as emotion moved through her. She raised her hands slowly, resting them against my chest. Not gripping, not claiming. My heart responded instantly, beating harder, stronger, as if recognizing something it had been waiting decades to feel. "I don't want you to disappear one day," she said. "I don't want to wake up and find this was just a season." I placed my hand over hers, pressing it gently against my chest. "I'm here," I said, "right now, fully. And I choose you in this moment with everything I have." Tears finally slipped down her cheeks. I brushed them away with my thumb, each one feeling like a vow. She smiled through them. "That's enough," she said. I leaned in slowly. "Not to take, to ask." She met me halfway. Our lips touched, softly, carefully, like a promise spoken in a whisper. The kiss was not hungry. It was reverent. It carried weeks of restraint, years of loneliness, and a lifetime of things we had never said out loud. When we pulled back, our foreheads remained together. Her hands were still on my chest. Mine still held her face. Nothing else mattered. The piano behind her caught the light. I guided her gently until she was seated on the bench, not pushing, not leading, just moving together as if our bodies had always known how to find this place. I sat beside her. Our knees touched. This time, neither of us moved away. She rested her head against my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her, not possessive, not urgent, just steady. Her body relaxed against mine, warmth spreading through us both. The world outside the window continued on without us. Inside, something sacred was happening. "I thought my life was over," I said quietly. Not in a dramatic way, just finished. She looked up at me. "It wasn't," she said. "It was waiting." I smiled. A real smile, one I hadn't felt form on my face in years. "For you," I said. "For us," she corrected gently. "We stayed like that for a long time. No urgency. No need to move forward faster than our hearts could follow." When I finally pressed my lips to her hair, breathing her in, the gesture felt more intimate than anything I had known before. Her arms slid around my waist. The contact was grounding, human, complete. I felt the years fall away, not erased, not denied, but honored. Every ache, every loss, every fear, they all led here. "I don't want to hide," she said softly. "Neither do I. Even if people judge." "I've lived my whole life being admired," I replied. "I'd rather be judged and loved than admired and empty." She smiled, her face still wet with tears. "I love you," she said. The words were simple. They changed everything. I didn't hesitate. "I love you too." And there it was. The truth, spoken without apology. We didn't rush toward a future. We didn't plan anything. We simply sat there, holding each other, letting the reality of love settle into our bones. The poetic climax was not a single moment. It was a realization. That love had found us not because we were young or free or unafraid, but because we were honest and brave and willing to open our hearts one last time. As the light shifted and the piano remained silent beside us, I knew something with absolute certainty. This was not the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of everything that mattered. Love does not settle quietly. After it is spoken, it demands space. It asks to be seen. It insists on being lived. The hours that followed our confession felt suspended, as if time itself had decided to slow down and give us room to breathe. We didn't rush to define anything. We didn't speak of tomorrow or next week or the rest of our lives. We stayed with now. Eleanor remained beside me at the piano bench, long after the morning light shifted. Her head rested against my shoulder, her fingers loosely intertwined with mine. The contact felt natural, not charged anymore, but grounding, like something that had always been missing, had finally found its place. For the first time in years, my body relaxed completely. "I feel lighter," she murmured. "So do I," I replied. And it was true. The weight I had carried, fear, restraint, regret, had not vanished, but it no longer pressed against my chest. Love hadn't erased the past. It had softened it. Reality returned gently. The house stirred. Sounds resumed. Life moved forward. And with it came the understanding that love, once chosen, must be protected. Not hidden, protected. We spoke later that afternoon, sitting across from each other at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around warm mugs we had forgotten to drink from. "We can't pretend this won't change things," Elena said. "I don't want to pretend anymore," I answered. She nodded. "There will be questions," she continued. "People will talk." "I know," I said. "They always do." She hesitated, then asked the question that mattered most. "Are you ashamed?" The word hit me hard. I reached across the table and took her hand, steady and sure. "Never," I said firmly. "Not of you. Not of this. Not of loving someone who made me whole again." Her eyes filled, but this time the tears were different. Relief. That evening we walked through the house together, not as employer and employee, not as strangers circling something unnamed, as two people who had chosen each other. Every room felt altered by that choice. The walls seemed less imposing, the furniture less distant. Even the art I had ignored for years looked different, as if it had been waiting for me to return to myself. In the bedroom, I paused at the doorway. Elena noticed. "You don't have to," she said gently. "I know," I replied, "but I want to acknowledge it." The bed inside was still disheveled from the night before, sheets folded carelessly, pillows uneven, evidence of a turning point. I didn't step inside. Some things deserved patience. That night, we slept in separate rooms. Not because we were afraid, because we were intentional. Love had arrived like a revelation, but it did not need to rush. It was strong enough to wait. Before parting, she stood in the hallway, her hand resting lightly on my arm. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For choosing honesty," she replied. "For choosing me." I smiled. "Thank you," I said, "for reminding me how to feel." She leaned in and kissed my cheek, slow, tender, unhurried. Then she walked away, and for the first time in weeks I slept. The following days brought challenges we could not avoid. Whispers reached us quickly. Staff noticed the change. The air around us shifted. Some people smiled kindly. Others watched too closely. A few judged without asking. I did not flinch. For decades I had lived carefully to protect my reputation. Now I lived truthfully to protect my heart. Elena moved through it all with quiet dignity. She didn't shrink. She didn't over-explain. She simply existed beside me, steady and warm. One afternoon I found her standing at the window, watching the city below. "Do you regret it?" I asked softly. She turned. "No," she said without hesitation. "Do you?" I shook my head. Not for a moment. The resolution did not come as a single dramatic gesture. It came in accumulation. In shared breakfasts that lingered longer than necessary. In conversations that stretched late into the evening. In laughter that surprised us both. I began playing the piano again. Not tentative notes, but full melodies. Elena would sit nearby listening, her presence anchoring me. The house transformed, not because of renovation, because of love. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the walls gold, I took her hands in mine. "I want to do this right," I said. "At your pace, with respect." She smiled. "That's all I've ever wanted." I pulled her into my arms then, not in urgency, not in hunger, but in certainty. She rested her head against my chest. My heart beat strong beneath her ear. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. "Neither am I," I replied. And that was the resolution. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to walk forward anyway. Together. We stood there for a long time, bodies close, breathing the same air, letting the truth of us settle. Love had not arrived loudly, but it had stayed, and it was enough. There comes a point when love asks for more than honesty. It asks for surrender. Not the reckless kind, not the kind that burns everything down, but the quiet, deliberate choice to stop protecting yourself from happiness. That point came for me on a morning that looked ordinary from the outside. The light was soft. The city moved as usual. The house breathed calmly. And yet inside me something finally let go. Elena was in the kitchen, barefoot, standing by the counter with a cup of tea warming her hands. Her hair was loosely tied, a few strands escaping and brushing her neck. She looked comfortable, at ease, like someone who belonged. The sight stopped me. Not because of desire alone, but because of what it represented. Home. I realized then how deeply I had been holding back, not just physically but emotionally. I had offered her love, yes, I had offered truth, but I was still guarding parts of myself, afraid of what complete openness might cost. I stepped closer. She turned and smiled when she saw me. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," I replied, my voice softer than usual. She studied my face for a moment. "You're thinking again," she said gently. I nodded. "Come sit with me," I said. She followed me to the living room, where the morning light fell across the couch. We sat close, knees touching, hands resting side by side. I took a breath. "I need to tell you something," I said. Her expression grew attentive, open. "I've spent most of my life believing that love was something you controlled," I continued. "Something you measured, something you gave in pieces so it wouldn't hurt as much if it ended." She didn't interrupt. "I thought I was being careful," I said, "but I was really just being afraid." Her fingers brushed against mine. "I don't want to love you halfway," I admitted. "I don't want to protect myself from you anymore." The words felt like a release. She inhaled slowly, emotion moving across her face. "Arthur," she said softly, "I've already given you all of me." I knew. And that knowledge humbled me. I turned toward her fully then, not leaning, not hovering, facing. "I'm old enough to know what regret feels like," I said, "and I refuse to let fear steal this from me." She reached up, cupping my cheek with her hand. Her touch was warm, grounding. "I don't need you to be fearless," she said. "I need you to be present." I placed my hand over hers. "I am," I said, "completely." And in that moment, I meant it. Total emotional surrender doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with stillness, with the decision to stay. I pulled her into my arms slowly, deliberately. This time there was no hesitation, no calculation, just certainty. She melted into me, her body fitting against mine as if it had always known this place. Her arms wrapped around my waist. I closed my eyes. Everything in me softened. The years, the walls, the defenses, all of it fell away. "I want you to know me," I said quietly against her hair. "Not just the man I am now, but the one I was, the one I failed to be." She held me tighter. "I already do," she replied, "and I love you for all of it." The simplicity of her acceptance undid me. I had been powerful, respected, untouchable, and yet I had never felt stronger than I did in that moment. Holding her, allowing myself to be fully seen. We sat there for a long time. No rush. No need to move. Her breathing slowed, mine followed. I became aware of the rhythm of us, two hearts beating close enough to hear each other. I rested my chin on her head. "I don't want to imagine a future without you," I said. She shifted slightly, looking up at me. "Then don't," she said. "Just live this one." I smiled. "You're wiser than you know," she smiled. "So are you," she said. "You just forgot for a while." That afternoon, we finally crossed a threshold we had been circling for weeks. Not out of urgency, out of trust. I led her to the bedroom, the same room that had witnessed my restlessness, my restraint, my longing. This time the door closed behind us without fear. The bed was simple, unadorned, familiar. She stood near it, watching me closely. "Only if you want to," I said. She didn't answer with words. She stepped closer and placed her hand over my heart. "I've wanted this," she said softly. "Not the moment, you." The surrender was mutual. We sat on the edge of the bed together, bodies close, warmth shared. I wrapped my arm around her and she leaned into me, resting her head on my shoulder. There was no rush to lie down. We stayed upright, grounded, present. I brushed my fingers along her arm, feeling the warmth of her skin, the subtle response of her body to my touch. She shivered slightly, not from cold, from awareness. I kissed her temple, then her cheek, then her forehead. Each kiss was slow, intentional, full of meaning. When our lips met again, it was deeper this time, not hungry but certain. The bed shifted beneath us as we leaned back together, sheets rustling softly, fabric warming quickly. Nothing was rushed. Everything was felt. Bodies grow warm when hearts open. Sweat gathered lightly at our skin, not from exertion but from closeness, from shared heat, from the intensity of presence. Her hand rested on my chest. Mine held her back. The world narrowed to the bed, the breath, the quiet sounds of two people finally allowing themselves to exist without armor. This was not youth. It was deeper. It was the surrender of two souls who understood what it meant to lose and chose love anyway. Later we lay side by side, the sheets tangled around us, the room filled with a quiet peace I had never known. She traced slow circles on my arm. "I don't feel afraid anymore," she said. "Neither do I replied, and for the first time I knew it was true. I had given myself fully, not to desire, to love. That night, as I drifted into sleep with her beside me, I understood something profound. Total surrender does not make you weak, it makes you whole. And in her arms I was finally complete. Happiness did not arrive suddenly. It grew, quietly at first, like morning light that creeps across the floor before you notice it has filled the entire room. The days after our surrender unfolded with a tenderness I had never known. Not the sharp thrill of new passion, but the deep, steady warmth of a love that had survived fear, doubt, and time itself. We woke together without urgency. The bed was no longer a place of restlessness, but of peace. Sheets still warm, tangled not by longing, but by belonging. Our bodies carried the memory of closeness, not demanding more, simply grateful for what had been shared. Elena lay beside me, her head resting on my chest, listening to my heartbeat as if it were a language she had finally learned to understand. "You're smiling," she murmured. "So are you," I replied. She lifted her head, her hair falling loosely around her face, and smiled in a way that made the years fall away from me completely. This was not youth returned. This was something better. Happiness reshapes time. Days felt fuller. Mornings stretched gently into afternoons. Evenings no longer ended in silence, but in conversation that wandered without destination. We cooked together, laughing at small mistakes. I burned the coffee more than once. She teased me for it, then drank it anyway, smiling as if even bitterness tasted better when shared. The house changed again. Not just warmed, alive. Music filled the rooms now. I played the piano with confidence, not perfection, and Elena would sit nearby, sometimes humming softly, sometimes simply listening with her eyes closed, as if the sound carried something sacred. I realized then that happiness wasn't loud. It was consistent. The world, of course, did not stop noticing us. People whispered. Some smiled. Others judged. It mattered less than I thought it would. I had spent a lifetime caring about how I was seen, about approval, about respect, about control. Now I cared about how she felt when she reached for my hand, about the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching, about the quiet certainty in her voice when she said my name. That certainty made everything else irrelevant. One afternoon, as we walked slowly through the garden, Elena stopped beneath the shade of an old tree. "This place feels different," she said. "It does," I agreed. "It feels like it belongs to us now." I turned to her, taking her hands in mine. "It does," I said simply. She looked up at me, eyes shining. "I never imagined a life like this," she admitted. "Not after everything." "And neither did I replied. "But I'm glad we found it." She leaned into me, resting her forehead against my chest. "I feel safe," she whispered. The word stayed with me. Safe. It was the greatest gift love had given me. Happiness also brought clarity. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft gold, I turned to her and spoke words I had been carrying quietly for days. "I don't want to measure time anymore," I said. "I don't want to live cautiously, counting years and fearing their end." She listened, attentive and calm. "I want to live with you," I continued, openly, honestly, fully. Her breath caught. "You already are," she said gently. "So yes," I smiled, "but I want to choose it every day out loud." She looked at me, her expression softening into something deeply emotional. "Arthur," she said, "I've already chosen you. I just didn't want to pressure you into saying it." I laughed quietly, shaking my head. "You never pressured me," I said. "You trusted me." I reached into my pocket then, not hurried, not dramatic, and held her hands again. "This is not about proving anything," I said. "It's about promise." She understood. And when I asked her to walk forward with me, not for appearances, not for comfort, but for love, her answer came without hesitation. "Yes," she said. And the joy that followed was quiet and overwhelming all at once. Our happiness was not reckless. It was intentional. We built routines that felt sacred in their simplicity. Morning tea, afternoon walks, evenings filled with stories, some from our pasts, some imagined for the future. We did not erase who we had been. We honored it. Elena spoke of her struggles without bitterness. I spoke of my losses without shutting down. Our shared space became one of honesty, where nothing needed to be hidden or softened. Love did not fix everything, but it made everything bearable. Time passed, and instead of stealing from us, it gave. I felt stronger, not physically alone, but emotionally. Purpose returned to my steps. Lightness returned to my voice. People noticed. They commented on how I stood straighter, how I laughed more easily, how the man they once knew had softened into someone warmer, more present. I knew why, because love had found me when I stopped running from it. One morning, Eleanor stood in front of the mirror adjusting a simple dress, her expression thoughtful. "You look beautiful," I said. She smiled. "You always say that, because it's always true." She turned toward me. "Do you ever think about what people will say?" I considered it for a moment. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Then I remember how it feels to wake up beside you." She laughed softly. "Fair enough." We shared a quiet smile. The happiness we built did not demand constant intensity. It was steady, deep, passionate in the way only mature love can be, felt in shared glances, in comfortable silences, in hands that reached for each other without thinking. At night we lay together listening to the city breathe beyond the windows. Her hand rested on my chest, mine rested over hers. "I used to think love faded," I said once. She tilted her head. "What do you think now?" "I think it changes," I replied, "and sometimes it gets better." She smiled. "I think so too. Years did not frighten me anymore. Age no longer felt like a closing door. It felt like a story reaching its most meaningful chapter. I no longer wished to be younger. I wished only to remain present, and with her I was." One evening, as I played the piano and Elena sang softly from the doorway, I felt something profound settle in my chest. Gratitude, not for what I had gained, but for what I had dared to feel. When the song ended, she came to me, resting her head on my shoulder. "You know," she said, "people say love is rare." "I think it's brave," I replied. She smiled. "Then we're brave." "Yes," I said, "we are." The ending was not dramatic. It was joyful, a joy that lingered in everyday moments, a joy that did not fade with time, a joy that proved something I had once believed impossible, that love does not belong to youth. It belongs to those willing to open their hearts no matter when. And as I held Elena close, watching the last light of day fade into night, I knew with absolute certainty this was not a late love. It was the right one. And it was enough. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this journey. If this love story moved you, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means more than you can imagine. And now I want to know, if you were in my place, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. Thank you for believing in love with me.